Hello. Hola. Hola. So, we are nearing the end of Penpot Fest. Oh, yeah, that's the, yeah. But there's still more food coming after. I know you have empty stomachs. That's impossible here. So, well, it's my pleasure to introduce the last talk, or rather a panel. It's great to end Penpot Fest with a conversation, with an open conversation. And we have this topic about designer and developer collaboration in the age of AI. So we have Vitaly Friedman. Thank you very much for coming. You know, it's really an honor to have you here. And then we have Iván Martínez, we have Eriol Fox, and we have Pablo Vázquez. So I let them introduce themselves, introduce the topic, and we're going to go and enjoy that last hour of Penpot Fest.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Pablo. Also, just from me, just very briefly. Actually, I have to say that I remember, just very briefly, you don't have to, I mean, I know it's like sitting here, but I feel like standing for a moment. I just wanted to really applaud for your incredible efforts here. I have to tell a little story, a very short story. I was studying computer science in university in Germany around, like now, it was a long time ago, it felt like 2003, 2004. And I remember spending a lot of time playing with Ubuntu and playing with GNOME and all the wonderful things. And I remember vividly this sense that I had when I was growing up back then, when I was studying computer science. Like, really this notion of, this is for me. Like, I kind of felt like this is for me. Like, I had this really strong feeling around open source and at the time, and it was really, really incredible. And it was, I went on and I did all these other things in my life, in web design, web development, accessibility, and sustainability, and all of that. And it's only now, and this is what I really felt, and we had a conversation with Pablo about that as well. It's only now when I actually, and in conversations yesterday, right, as well, when I feel this sense of community and open source again. That's incredible for me. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like the feeling that you get, and it's really empowering in many ways. And I want you to have this feeling as well, because you contribute to it. You are the part of it. You're shaping it. I'm just coming in and enjoying it, right? That's not fair for me. And so that's just incredible. That's really impressive. I want to applaud for this incredible efforts here. So thank you so much for making all of this happen. Right? And I'm very happy to have a wonderful panel today, because we're going to talk about AI. Is anybody excited about AI? Hey. Everything, like, there's not a single conversation that doesn't, cover AI in some way. So let's talk about that, and let's see how we can apply it to our work, to our products, to whatever it is that we're actually working on. And I'm very happy to have wonderful speakers here with us. We have Eriol Fox. Eriol, hello.
Hi.
No, everybody. Oh. Hey. Right. So Eriol is a legend, lead designer with 10 years of experience in companies and NGOs around the world, doing very important work, some of the toughest humanitarian problems, including crisis response, democracy and human rights, and coming from Bristol, Greater Bristol area, to be precise, right, in the UK, and currently also product manager and senior designer at Simply Secure, if that's right?
Ooh, we recently rebranded to Superbloom, but we're well known as Simply Secure, so we're making that transition from Simply Secure to Superbloom.
Okay.
We did it all openly, actually. The process of rebranding was done by Open Design Committee. We blogged about it on our website, so if you want to, not about AI, just something about openness, if you want to read about that, you can read about that on our website.
Excellent, excellent, all right. We also have Iván Martínez Toro with us, product engineer working, right? A product engineer working with product designers, data scientists, and engineering teams, also as a CTO on track, creator of PrivateGPT, right? And spent a lot of his life between Arduino, native mobile development, VR, blockchain, and of course AI. So it's like you just take it all in, don't you?
Yeah, can't stop.
That's okay. That's fair. And we also have Pablo with us. And Pablo is a lighting artist communication at Blender Institute, right? Hosts a live show, a popular live show.
Yeah, I tried to. I've been failing for the last couple of weeks. We've been busy
we're a small team, so sometimes we have to release a new version of the software. Sometimes we have to make YouTube videos. So get a pick. And yeah, it's going pretty well. Yeah.
Excellent. So that's very exciting.
Okay.
We also have Perry with us, but unfortunately doesn't feel very well yet. But if you have any questions about AI, please come to Perry as well. And also a round of applause for Perry would be in order. Right. So the way we're doing to do this is it's very friendly, informal environment. So everybody who's watching online, everybody who's sitting here now and watching offline, like enjoying this offline experience, I would say. You're encouraged to participate. So we have some questions and topics that we want to discuss, but we will have time to open it up to you as well, to bring your questions. So feel free to think about what bothers or excites you in the world of AI, and we'd love to have this conversation, right? And I think that there is one thing that unites everyone here on stage. Do you know what that is? We are opinionated about AI. Right? We have strong opinions about AI, so we really better get in. And I think, essentially the topic of the panel is collaboration. Collaboration in the age of AI. But when I think about collaboration between designers, developers, and everybody else on the team, right, I often feel like actually the most difficult problems that we're dealing with as designers, as developers, as different team members, are usually people problems, right? Not tools problems, but people problems. And if I think about improving collaboration, we have to ask a question that I want to bring to maybe Eriol first. Can we trust AI? I mean, if we want to improve collaboration with the help of AI, we better can trust it. And if we can trust it, to what degree?
Such an interesting question. I can speak from a personal perspective that I do not yet trust AI. I think we all need to make our own individual decisions about whether we trust it or not. I think that it can definitely help us with a lot of people problems. And I do think the interesting word that you use in this question is trust. And to talk about the challenges that often happen between the collaboration that I've experienced between designer and developer and everyone else that's involved in the process is usually that element of trust. So if AI can help designers and developers better understand the perspectives that they're bringing to tool creation, as well as including users, and really not just the intricate and complex user needs that the users are aware of, but often the things that users are not aware of. Mm-hmm. So you've unfortunately invited onto the panel the human rights person who will be like, whoa, 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 human rights, against every question. But the thing about being a human rights-centered designer is that most people around the world are not aware of their complete human rights when they're interacting with technology. So as a human rights-centered designer, whether we're using AI to help with the collaboration of tools, or whether we're using AI as a component of a tool that is used in a human rights scenario or a humanitarian crisis scenario, the main thing that we need to consider is, would AI know, or can AI help users or designers or developers better understand what the human rights needs are within that case of designing that tool? And playing around with a few of the tools, there's some things that they can maybe help with, but there's a lot that's missing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that in many ways when we're thinking about AI, we always think like we need to feed the machine more data, just give it more data, data everywhere. And at some point, at least this is how the feeling that I'm getting from conversations and posts and all, like we almost embellish AI to the point that this is the super machine. We don't know how that works really, like how it makes decisions behind the scenes, but we created this super creature that is so much smarter, infinitely smarter than us, right? And that can solve all the problems in the world. But I'm wondering why we don't end up then solving the real problems, like healthcare. And I don't know, if this is a creature of such incredible intelligence, I'd really want to dive in. Well, that goes a little bit philosophical in there. But it also goes to the point, like if we're actually diving into tooling, if we kind of have a sense of trust into AI, one thing that I have, which is a problem, I think, like if I ask AI to produce accessible color palettes, right? I didn't have a really great experience so far in getting to the point where I felt, oh, this is really exactly what I needed. So very often it will be okay, very often it will be maybe suboptimal, I would say. So it feels like very often you do have to go ahead and tweak. And you do have to go ahead and kind of create this edit manual overview and this layer of manual thing. And we often think about AI being a co-pilot. So maybe a question that I would probably ask at this point, it's not that I was supposed to run it, but maybe a question to Pablo. Do you feel like, right now we're thinking about AI being our co-pilot. We are leading the train, the plane, whatever, and AI is a co-pilot. Going back to the trust issue again, do you think at some point we will be the co-pilots for AI instead? So AI will be driving us? Because right now, even accessible color palettes, they feel like at some point we'll be just sitting back and say, we don't have to do the work. We will be the co-pilots.
I think so, and I think we should do it. So back to the trust question. I think we can totally trust AI. And don't quote me on this, but I think you can trust AI because AI, right, it's not like the one thing that is right everywhere. AI uses a model. So as long as the model is like, as AI is fed with the proper model or you teach it the right things, it can't just make up bad stuff out of it, right? Like I think the trust comes from the process. So as long as whatever you feed to the AI is transparent, as long as the code is available to see, okay, what is going on under the hood, and as long as the tools are there to see and to be transparent enough, I don't see a reason why not to trust it. But
I'm open to opinions, so please go ahead, Eriol.
It's really interesting to hear you say that because I don't disagree, and I'm a cautiously optimistic person. I was at another conference earlier this month called RightsCon. RightsCon is one of the main conferences alongside the Internet Freedom Festival for human rights activists and technology. And one of the conversations that I was involved with was whether or not AI, machine learning, a lot of these different kinds of technologies can accurately be trusted to make judgments about laws and human rights issues via technology that we do not yet have like human rights equity about. So if we do not yet have a society which is respecting of human rights globally, how can a tool, would a tool mimic that inequality? And we had a long conversation with a lot of gender-based violence advocates and people that are LGBT advocates. How can these technologies coexist when we have a society which puts, people that are fighting for our rights at risk? So cautious. So don't disagree. Yeah. I would love to see the world where we become co-pilots to having that support, But
that's at the point where you start tweaking it, and then at some point you end up with if you, okay, no, this is wrong. Okay, fix that. Okay, undo, and then go back to feeding it more of whatever values you have.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think when we're actually looking into tweaking and kind of going in that direction, I think it's also interesting, maybe kind of to root the conversation a little bit as well. I see as well that this is very surprising to me to see that we ended up in the world of 2023, right, where I see the rise of prompt engineers. I did not believe, 5 years ago, I wouldn't believe that there is this notion of AI prompt engineer as a full-time job, right? I mean, I remember, if you're looking in a couple of years ago, there was this notion of Webpack, senior Webpack configurator as a full job title, right? And then we're getting into this world of AI prompt engineering. And this is probably a good question to Ivan at this point, because I think that you also have very strong opinions on that.
Yeah.
Is it really it? Are we just getting... you see a lot of prompts. Everything is extended with the notion of AI with prompts, where we can describe what we want, and then we end up kind of getting what we want. Is it really it, or is it just a start?
No, it's just a start. I don't think anyone is going to work as a full-time prompt engineer, to be honest. I don't see companies hiring prompt engineers. I think that's a reflection of there's people and there's companies wanting to adopt this technology, and the technology is not there yet from a product perspective. I think that's the key of it. So there's no design being applied to AI yet, and I think that's the problem. So so we're saying that we need some special kind of profiler role that knows how to talk to the machine. That really makes no sense. Like, you know, I've been researching a little bit how people is actually using this technology, and the people that really get most value out of it have like a doc sitting next to them with a lot of these magic spells, these prompts, that they copy and paste over and over again, and that's the way you get it to work. That's, in my opinion, a lack of product, a lack of design, and I think it's normal. I think it's just a matter of how early we are, and we want to adopt it super fast. But the thing is that we're moving maybe too fast from the research phase, like where like it was only papers and research, to the product side of things. And but I think it's super exciting to actually get it started. I really think, and that's why I'm super happy to be here, because now is the time to start applying product design to AI. Right. And I think very soon we're gonna be forgetting about this idea of prompt engineering, because in my opinion, it makes no sense. Right.
I kind of like this idea of really AI becoming kind of this invisible part of our experiences, where we drag sticky notes, we produce as a brainstorming session sticky notes on the canvas, and then cluster it, make sense of it, create insights of that. Maybe that's great, but it doesn't have to be like, please, does anybody says please to ChatGPT?
I do.
I do.
Or like, dear ChatGPT, how are you doing today? Like, I saw people actually doing that, and like having a conversation. It's just, I do that.
But that makes sense.
Don't judge me.
Going back to the previous point, like on the trust and everything, like something I wanted to share is that the little we know about how those models are trained. Like, do we know the data set that was used to train OpenAI's GPT-4 or even Adobe tools? We don't. So yeah, you better say hi and thank you, because you don't know what's going on in there. And I think that's for me, that's where we should be going. Like trust is, to Pablo's point, is all about how that was trained. And the sooner we know the full data set that was used to train a model, the sooner we'll be able to trust it. Because that thing is not making magic. It's just, finding patterns and going from there. So I think we will first need to know, and then collaborate, like in an open source environment, to create like the right type of data set. So the AI really creates value within the boundaries.
Right.
You need to put the open in OpenAI.
Yeah. That's,
two points. I love OpenAI, and one of the things that I really love seeing is Hugging Face. So Hugging Face with all their open repositories, right? That's what I want to see as like somebody that is really interested in, okay, I really want to know the ins and outs of your privacy policies, why you're building this AI. I've been really interested and really impressed by what do Google call it? The People plus AI guidebook, like the different guidance that they give about when to use AI, how to assess whether or not a product should use AI, and that's been really great to see, as well as the open repository is fantastic. But on trust, there was a study done recently by, I can't remember the organization, but they talked to kids under 12, and they asked them the question of, would you want a robot to be your friend? And they did this amazing study about like what it means to trust AI and what it means to trust an automated robot. And it turns out that kids want certain roles to be done by robots and AI and not other roles. So one of the takeaways from that research was, if there is a role which is about care, human care and interaction, they don't want robots to go near that interaction because it interferes with the human aspect of life. And if it's like service, like recommendations, or like customer service to some extent that doesn't need more of a human element, kids were like, I would love a robot to be doing that for me. So it's a really interesting study to look at that. Like, as adults, sometimes we dig into the intellect, and sometimes when you ask a kid, do you want a robot friend? They're like, yes, no, and it's more kind of authentic perspective.
Yeah, but I think it's actually quite important that we kind of become a little bit more conscious, I guess, about where we want AI, where we don't want AI, where it's maybe more effective, where it's more, well, unhelpful, I would say. And now that we know that prompt engineering is maybe not the future, sorry for those of you who consider themselves to change a career, to become a prompt engineer, and maybe a question for Pablo, if prompt engineering is maybe not what we want as an AI application in most products, when we're looking into, again, collaboration between designers, developers, and teams in general in products, one of the really interesting features, I think, is documentation, right? When you think about documenting components, when you think about documenting directions, that's like making sense or kind of creating insights out of just a lot of data. That's a great application of AI, right? Do you see any other applications or any other features or things that actually really belong in there? So this is where we want AI to be a part of our digital experiences or digital products? Any examples maybe or so?
Well, I'm from Blender related to 3D, and there are many processes in 3D that are so tedious that I don't think anyone would disagree on covering some aspects with AI. There is UV unwrapping, there is rigging, there is so many areas that are prone to human error. That I think many people would agree to, like, yeah, please do it, you do it. But the subset of AI that I'm most interested in is machine learning. Because there are processes that I've been doing for years, and I always press the same buttons, and presets are not enough sometimes. So the machine learning aspect of AI to me is more interesting because it can build my own model, and I can share it with you. Hey, this is my model of doing things. So it's like a tutorial on steroids. This is my way of doing things, and then getting maybe recommendations of how to improve that, and maybe even sharing it. It's like so people could see like this is the process. I don't know even how to visualize a AI model, right? It's like 4-dimensional. But yeah, it's like this is what I do, and compare it maybe with other people in the community to take over the tasks that I do repeatedly, and it could be optimized.
Right. Ivan, maybe do you have like a wish list that you wish every single product out there to have, or anything that you feel like, okay, this really belongs there? Or maybe any tedious experiences or tedious tasks that you keep doing manually over and over again? Because it feels like one part of where AI can really help is automation.
Yeah.
Like automating these tedious tasks. I don't know about creativity. We maybe, we can talk about that, right? But automation anywhere?
Yeah, I think actually in the last 7 years at OnTrack, I've been working at building a copilot actually for this specific use case, which is transportation. And something I've learned is that it is us, the ones that needs to be creative on how to use this technology. And I don't see it as a full automation, but more like a copilot type of role. But something I want to share for all of us to be creative, because I think we're falling into the easy use cases. No? Like this can create text. OK, let's give some keys, and it will create the whole blog post for us. No? Like, this is super simple. But if you think about it, the interesting part is not reactive, it's proactive. So having the AI to actually help you before you ask for help, I think that's something super interesting. And I've worked a lot with machine learning models. Something I see, like, for example, there is a use case which I would love to see soon, which is on health. So I think we still have a reactive approach to health. So we get sick, and then we go to the doctor. No? Health needs to change completely. So we have the tools, we have these machine learning models that can predict that you're going to get sick. And it's going to be better for you because at the end of the day, the way we treat our sickness is not good for our body. So you can actually prevent it. And it's going to be good for society, even economically, because if you can save a lot of money on social security and health in general if you anticipate. And you can help people really live a healthier life. No? I think the key there is privacy again, because yeah, for that you need all the data of how your body is doing and where are you going to send that data. So there's a whole topic around privacy that I think the models are there, the technology is quite advanced, but this whole topic of, okay, who's going to be managing my physical health data is a topic itself.
Okay, I think that Eriol, you have opinions on that?
For sure. When I think about this, I think about one of the technologies that has scared me in the humanitarian and human rights space, which is biometric, like identification capture as well. And while I totally agree that AI can definitely help with diagnosing and helping with that, it circumvents the necessity of those systems, or the progress towards the necessity of those systems, circumvents the rights to privacy, circumvents the rights that people should have. And the things that worry me are things to do with how discrimination might come into either models or decision-making processes. So like where countries might discriminate against disabilities or impairments or against like different kinds of identities, or if accidentally some kind of information is captured by healthcare, which is then shared with the government, and we don't trust our governments. So if the government, so say you're an LGBT person that has sex with somebody that's the same sex as you, and that gets recorded in your health data, and then the government has access to your health data, and you live under a government where you're at risk of harm for being an identity, your access then to essential healthcare puts you at risk through the systems.
Right.
So this is like where I'm like, absolutely, in the best case scenarios, this will really help us, but where we need to still have the co-pilot process of making sure, okay, can we, I didn't think I'd say this phrase here, can we trust our governments? Can we make sure that as designers we're making sure that the users are protected, and when they hand over that kind of information, or when we ask for that kind of thing, or AI asks for it.
Right. I think we're all kind of very excited, I guess, at this point to just add AI powered on anything, on everything, and that makes it feel more modern, more exciting, I guess. But then at the same time, there are also massive applications that come with it, right? So obviously. Maybe also looking at the side of what is happening in our industry. I feel like I remember vividly when I used to be a web designer. Now this term doesn't really exist. Like, what do you mean web design? Like, what is that? Like, because we ended up, I was a webmaster. Anybody was a webmaster back in the day? Okay, so I felt like, I don't even know what this meant back then. Just do everything. It's like a full stack engineer / designer with magical capabilities, I guess. So, but then we moved. Like, we really evolved in the industry. And then we ended up designers, or web designers, and web developers. That made sense for a while. Then we got to this world where we have front-end designers, we have front-end engineers, we have back-end designers. Oh, that's weird. No, we don't. We have back-end engineers, we have front-end, we have DevOps, we have all those things. And I feel like we're all really drifting apart so much that when we're looking into what we're doing, like we have designers now, and they are designers, like designers. Like, well, I think that many of us are tapping here and there, but I think like I've seen roles where you're just designers and you have developers, and they don't necessarily have even the same vocabulary sometimes, right? And this is an issue, I think. And when we're talking about collaboration, right, I think that really bridging that gap has been something that we all have been working on in that industry for like the last 15 years or so. And I'm wondering, how are we going to kind of bridge those roles? They seem to be so distinct at some point. I think like Penpot being a very nice example of really this kind of coming together closely. But I'm wondering, can AI help us to really bridge that gap for good? This has been a topic on every, a topic of a talk on every conference for the last 15 years. How do we make peace between designers and developers so they can work together? Can AI help us? Eriol?
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned earlier the process of when you're doing synthesis work on design research, the clustering, can you make sense of this? And I wonder how far we have to go before like the skills of the designer are fully trusted by like developers. There's always like a sort of question-answer process I've found when you present, here is what I've synthesized. And I do have, like I would in my work, invite developers to say, here's my research, here's audio files, here's post-its, here's all the different things. Use an AI tool to, or use the tools that feel comfortable to you to explore this, because I'm very pro any ways that the different functions across building products, building software products, open source products, enable like excitement. So if an AI tool helps developers go, okay, well, the ways in which I want to understand this research and these ways that you've expressed design are through using these tools, I think that that's fantastic, like absolutely. But I think the point where I exercise caution is where we're making like the product decisions to take that. It's like the questions that we ask, so we've got this, what do we do with it? Do we need to edit it? Do we need to do something else with it to trust it? So.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Question for Pablo then, because you seem to be, of all of us, you've been most enthusiastic, I think, about AI. I want to challenge you a little, and maybe also everyone in the room as well. I just had a conversation 2 weeks ago with a friend of mine. He said, why are we so obsessed with AI, actually? Because actually, when you think about this, are we going to the future where we are, as the interface designers or UX designers, or designers in general, we're designing interfaces, right? But if we have AI, and AI is so smart and so intelligent, so powerful, so knowledgeable, can we just tell it, you know, do the design for us? We won't even have interfaces. You go to ChatGPT, it answers all the questions. You don't need to have an interface for that. So it has all the right answers for us. Well, if they're right or not, that's a different conversation, right? Sometimes it isn't, right? But overall, where does it leave us where we pay so much attention to filters, to navigation, to design patterns, to data grids with inline editing and all of that, right? Where we've got to spend so much time designing these beautiful experiences, right? But in the end, let's just ask the machine and it will give us an output. And if it's smart enough, then we won't even need our interface design in general. What's your take on this?
Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that AI can come up with that many, can come up with new things as easily as humans when presented with options. For example, the Midjourney or DALL-E, for example, they offer you with 4 options, always. And that takes longer, that takes more time. That was a design decision that a human did. Right. Because if you offer one, like if you ask, make me a new logo for Penpot, and they give you one, and that would be fast. But in the design process, someone thought it's like, okay, instead of taking 10 seconds to give you one option, and it's like, okay, let's take 40 seconds, but give 4 options, because that gives people the feeling that they have an option, and they do, and they know which ones are good or bad, and the machine has to learn also from that process. So I don't think we can reach a point and end up with content of good taste that it's just the one option, and that would be good from day one. There's always that learning process, because the machines, I mean, they are artificial intelligence, and intelligence, like we're born with very little one, right? We have to learn over time, and the same with machines.
Yeah, yeah. I think also just one point on that, I think, which is also quite interesting, is I think that this is like I think we often really kind of we have our input into the machine, then we get the output, and we do something with it, and then we reiterate, and we keep refining. But there is no notion, very often at least, there is no notion of the whole life cycle of the development. So what I really liked about the very first talk yesterday, it was really insightful to me, this idea about the design knowledge graph, where we actually capture everything that has been done, right? We capture the versioning, we capture the history of design decisions made, why they're made, kind of what is happening under the hood. But of course, it has to be not just design decisions, but also everything that's happening on the level of the project or product, business decisions made, and so on. And I can imagine AI being an incredibly powerful tool for helping, let's say, a product team to make smarter decisions, like again, being a co-pilot, but not just for design, but kind of for the whole product development, including the roadmap and everything else. So that's, I think, is really, really interesting. But that brings me to this point which I have to bring up before we open this to you as well. There is this ongoing joke that's going around in the industry as well. US, America, very good in investments, startups, business, and all that. This is the joke, right? This is how it goes. China is very good in economy, like booming and all. Europe is very good at regulation, right? Which brings us to regulation, I think, which is also an important consideration to have. Like right now, we see in the UK, I believe, and also here in Europe, the Artificial Intelligence Act that might be changing quite a bit about how AI is going to be used, and it's very restrictive. It's probably one of the, I'm not an expert on this, but from what I know, it's quite restrictive in the way of how it should be, how it will work in products, right? But at the same time, there is this fear that's coming mostly from US that, oh, if you now restrict AI, we will never find out the capacity, the magical power that is hidden behind it, right? And so to the point that I think that at some point there was a blog post on OpenAI blog where it was said, well, if the Artificial Intelligence Act comes into action in Europe, it might not be available in Europe after that, right? So this brings us to the wonderful new world of, cookie prompts, right? And cookie prompts we have basically, in many companies actually decided to just move away and not make a service unavailable in Europe because of GDPR protection. Well, it's not necessarily related to cookie prompts, but kind of the idea being, oh, GDPR is so complicated for US companies, so we are just going to pull out entirely. To the point that we might not have some AI services available in Europe because the Artificial Intelligence Act is so complicated and restrictive. But we need regulation, right? The question is, do you think that we will end up in the world where some parts of the world will be heavily regulating and some parts will be like Wild West? Like this, of course, has incredible implications on human rights. So I do have to ask you, Eriol, at this.
I think your first question was, does it need regulation? Yes, absolutely. I think will certain places become a Wild West? I guess in the sense where some citizens of some countries may not be comfortable with, say, for example, a different example, which is like cameras on your streets that record you, and then that feeding certain databases. Without regulation, you can't make informed choices. But I think the thing that's missing, and the thing that's happening more regularly, which we all as a design community need to engage in, is how we as designers and developers sit at regulation tables.
Yeah.
And if I could urge you to do a single thing, it would to become as interested in dry regulation documents as you possibly can be, because this is how we help regulation understand what it means to design tools. So it's the same with deceptive design, formerly known as dark patterns, which is becoming more they're involving the design community more in how we regulate those things, which is fantastic. And I think we need to do the same thing with our own engagement with regulation. We can participate in that. I think we've been told as creatives or whatever that we can't participate in regulatory conversations, and we should. So yeah, talk to lawyers, read regulation documents, and get a seat at those tables so that the design of things can become important as part of the regulation.
All right, excellent. So maybe then before we actually wrap it up and open it up for you, maybe just a quick word of wisdom. If we look at the bright future, somebody is going to watch this panel, I don't know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, thinking, what were they thinking? AI was everything, and then it changed and it evolved and it became this other thing. So if you think about the future, like, I mean, I know this, like even 2 weeks is probably such a long period in AI world now. But if you think about the, the world in 5 years, what would you love AI to become? Or how would you like it to influence our world? So maybe we can start with you, Ivan.
Okay. So I think when I look at AI, not only at this last bit of it, like with generative models, but like the whole machine learning, how it is evolving, like I see it is going to impact profoundly like the society, like the way we work, the way we interact. And I think we need to take a conscious decision as a society, like to make sure that this remains open to the whole world, like because it can make like digitalization itself already created a gap in societies. I think this can create like a huge gap, like impossible to close. So I think we really need to, as was just mentioned, get involved into regulation. Like we cannot let people that don't get it, don't understand it, write the regulation. We need to be there. We need to participate. It is boring, but we need to be there. And I think I would look into a future where this technology is open, like the regulation forces this technology to be open and available for the whole society. I think that's key. And also regulation should look into data sets, into the models themselves, and because I think it can have like a very good impact to society, but it is also a very dangerous tool if we keep it close or only powerful countries have access to it.
Okay. Pablo?
On a similar note, I think the future is AI in one way or another, and the future is open source. I can totally see ourselves looking, I don't know, 10 years, 20, 50 years from now, and looking back, and it's like, how wasn't AI open from day one? Like really, right? Like, were you nuts? Like, how can you have these invisible models that no one knows what is fed to, and then just trust that process? Yeah, the future is open source for sure, because at some point we're going to realize how silly it is that that we don't have access to see how things are done.
Mm-hmm. And final word from Eriol?
There's one current example that I think AI, that I'd like to see more happen. So one of the things that I saw happen in the creative artist community with DALL-E and Midjourney happen is suddenly artists and image creators wanted to have conversations about the openness, their rights. And I hadn't noticed that conversation happen until, like, as widely as it did. I can't remember the last time that had happened. So I think that even though it's a very complicated issue, the rights and the ownership of like creative materials, I think it was beautiful to see creatives engaging in, this is how I want to own, or this is how I want to share. And it's essentially conversations about licensing. And I was like, there are other people that have never done open source are having conversations about licensing. Fantastic, so exciting. And yeah, I think the future for AI is incredibly bright. And yeah, more of those conversations and more of that openness, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, 100% we should decentralize the AI from the Western society. Absolutely, like it needs to be centralized in marginalized communities, the global majority. Let's make a collective decision as people that have been in power, the kind of white supremacist society. It needs to be centered in like communities that know what it's like to be oppressed by the prevalent society. So that's what I'd like to see happen.
Excellent, right? From my end, maybe just to add a little bit on that. I don't know why, but recently I started thinking a lot about what it was like for me when I was in school. I know it's very strange talk, like what? And I think I really wish that there was something that I was taught in school, like taxes. Like I wish somebody told me when I was like, I don't know, 10 years old, how tax systems work. And I wish somebody told me how to communicate better, right? So I know a few things about mathematics and algebra and geometry, and these are very useful skills. But I'm wondering now, like, how AI is going to also reshape entirely how we're doing the schooling, like the actual education systems. Because now you can get an immediate, incredibly correct, with a high precision, very correct answer from AI. So maybe we could be doing slightly more creative things, because this is, we can have a conversation about that. This is where I think AI is maybe not as good as people are. I'm very happy to be challenged on that, right? So I'm very looking forward to these traditional industries, healthcare, education, being disrupted by AI. So I think that this is a good thing, right? Whew. All right, so do we have any questions in the room? Oh, we have some opinions in the back. Oh, okay, get ready. This is going to be something.
So I have one question. How do you think AI will affect our quality in our profession? Like, how will it affect like how our code is written or our design is done? Looking back like 20 years, we had the shift in photography from analog to digital. Like, the quality of photography really degraded, and everybody I know that's into analog photography takes way more time in spending and like gets more quality results out. But it's not a big bunch. So how do you see this effect on AI in the future?
Anybody?
I can answer on the technical side. I like one of the teams at OnTrack is the data team, and the data team came from not that technical background. They were data analysts, but their job is getting more and more technical every day. And for them, the ability to use AI to code, to actually write code, which is not code for production, it's code for analysis. So it is not like, you need like the best engineer to actually write the most robust code. But out of the sudden, they became way more performant because they didn't have they didn't need to go to the engineering team to actually get things done when they had an idea. And I think that applies to everything. I think we are lowering entry barriers for people to actually try their ideas. And I love that. I love that part of it.
Aaron? Yeah. So I think from my end, when I look back as well, I mean, I always feel like whenever we make technology more accessible to people, good things happen. So one thing that I experienced on my own is, again, looking back in the past all day long today. So when I used to be a webmaster, right, I felt like many people around me who had no idea about HTML, who had no idea about the web, they could relatively quickly build a website. It wouldn't be a nice website. It would be probably using Perl and PHP and all these things, but it was relatively straightforward and easy. Now I feel like for people who I get to see when I'm talking about like students, right? Oh, web is not easy for them. Right? Web is not straightforward. I mean, obviously you can go to plenty of generators of websites and click, generate them with a button, but if you want to bring in some sort of creativity, you need to think about all those things that are kind of crushing you. Like if you think about like full stack development, like what is happening in the JavaScript side of things, what is happening in CSS, this is so much. So I think that if in some way, and this is what it seems like it's going to become, if we get AI to the point where we can say, produce code, semantic output, accessible color schemes, and so on, out of the box in some of those magical constructors, I think is a good thing. I don't think it's necessarily going to reduce the quality of code or designs. As long as it's accessible, as long as somebody can quickly get to where they want to be, I'm perfectly fine with it, I would say. Maybe, yeah?
I don't know. I'd love to give an example from a design perspective, if that's okay. I don't know whether it's launched yet, so I might get in trouble for saying this if it's recorded. So I'll be a bit vague. I saw an example recently. I know somebody that works at an organization that makes technology for people that only have use of their eyes, for eye tracking software. And I saw the use of creative AI tools enable people that have zero mobility, can't speak, communicate, to create art. And I sobbed, like, viscerally for a long time when I saw this use of AI technology enabling people to express themselves So I think that this gives me tingles. Like this kind of AI gives me like hope for humans thinking this can make life better for these like folks that have impairments. So that I think is how design can be improved, like process-wise.
That's an interesting point because I also saw an article where somebody who wanted to become a composer, a music composer, for a long time, and it's always like a barrier. You have to learn, you have to understand and all. And all of a sudden, they could easily produce some relatively decent tunes and be so excited. And when I see the kind of the smile that children have when they just click a couple of buttons and they have this remarkable result, that could be really great for teaching, right, and learning and so on. So I'm very hopeful at this point. I think there was a question in there.
Okay,
first.
hello.
Yes, yes.
I'm here.
Yes.
So I'm very inspired by one quote about design, which says, if you want to be a good designer, don't study design, study philosophy, and you're interested, I forgot the whole quote, but you touched the topic of education, and you say maybe not studying like algebra and other things will permit us to be more creative. But my question is, can we be really creative if we don't study these basic things like literature and algebra, math, and philosophy? Can we do that?
Oh, that's a very good question. From my end, I didn't mean to dismiss the entire the entire series of industries like literature and so on. Of course, this is a part. This needs to be a part of it. And it's a very important part, right? I wish there was actually more school for me. I mean, I know it sounds very strange now, but because back then I didn't even like school that much. But I wish there was more school stuff where we'd be learning all the different disciplines as well. Anything from you?
Oh yeah, like I have two girls, like twins. They're turning 10 years old now, and I really think we should keep the basics, but then I see them like learning every small part of this type of insects, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe they could be using the time to actually learn critical thinking, for example.
Critical thinking, yeah.
Which is something super important, or actually how to express their ideas and then how to have a debate and a discussion. I do think we need to evolve a little bit in education. Yeah, I also have a strong opinion there, and I would love more schools of more types to be available. Because there's also different types of education, and we should be able to choose.
Right.
Yeah. We should teach AI as well.
Yeah.
Like, it should be. I think in the future it should be like knowing a bit of CSS, everybody should have at least some knowledge about it, because it is going to be everywhere, and the only way to make it democratic if we are all, at least we know what's going on at the basic level. And because some aspects are never going to change, right? Like human psychology, it's always there. Like if you're studying design, psychology is a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. I think with AI also, it's going to be a huge part of it. We got to learn it.
Okay, well, yes.
If you have the human rights worker bingo card and you're filling it out, I'm going to say another word where you can fill out your bingo card. So education is, the Western world is colonial. It's incredibly colonial. One of my colleagues is from Vietnam and would talk a lot about how the design education in Vietnam is 100% colonial from that era. And so I think that what you're touching on is like, what practices of design do we value under colonialism, and how do we break out of like the colonial way of thinking and start to embrace what we could describe as like indigenous practices of a design and different ways than what we've been taught is the good way, which is like very Western European, US-centric ways of doing design, which aren't the only ways of doing design at all. So I think 100% agree with you. More access to all the ways globally that we approach design and lifting them up like above these colonial ways.
Fantastic. I think there were a few more questions. Way more questions. Excellent.
Thanks. All right, so I'm going to ask a critical but friendly question here. So I think one interesting aspect of the hype around AI is that it conveniently coincides with like a massive amount of financial investment in these technologies. I'm not saying we're all like hyped on it because like maybe we could be the next startup that gets, you know, $100 million from, you know, Andreessen Horowitz or whatever. But if we look at a lot of the early deployment of AI systems so far, a lot of them haven't necessarily matched our expectations of the sort of social good that we've seen. We've seen AI systems increasing inequality through fraud detection systems and public services. We've seen newsfeed algorithms lead to genocide in countries like Burma. And so I'm curious about a lot of this investment going into AI. The AI applications that might come out of that might not necessarily match our idealized versions of maybe these different, more equitable applications. And when thinking about your positivity towards this technology, because obviously there are probably nice use cases out of it, how do you rectify it with the reality of what our current political and economic situations are towards investing in this technology?
I think it's a perfect question for Pablo.
I'm also interested in hearing from the team at Kaleidos, actually, that work on the AI side of things that we saw today. But yeah, can you repeat the question? Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, so the question is basically when we're looking at the massive investments that are going into the world of AI, many of them are not necessarily making a positive contribution to the society in which we're living. So while in many ways we're improving our collaboration, we're improving our efficiency, productivity with our tools, but at the same time, it actually has a lot of negative consequences as well in kind of the world in which we're living. So the question is, we're looking at the enthusiasm that we prospect, and many people, of course, around us and the entire world prospects into AI. Can we justify it, given that the output of AI so far has not really helped society as a whole?
I think it's too early to even see the outcome of that. And right now, I think we're totally on a bubble of AI and people investing and throwing money at AI because NFTs are no longer a thing, 3D is no longer a thing, and I think it's too early. And the only way we could fix some of this is with regulation again, and make it sure that the way these tools are developed are visible. Otherwise, everybody can come up with an AI model, and it's not really good, I think.
Okay, Eriol, I think that you have also thoughts on that.
I'm going to say like the shortest answer, and I think it won't surprise you. Ethical open source licenses? It's controversial. Maybe that is how maybe we need to really consider what it means to ethically produce technology and engage with it. Even though regulation exists for a lot of things, people still do harm. And I think that, I wonder if there is a world where it will not be used to create harm, but I also wonder if there are more things that we can do as a community to embrace like ethical ways of using stuff to make sure that we don't build harmful tools, essentially, or tools that can be used for harm, because we won't always hear in the news about how they're used for harm until it's too late, essentially.
Yeah. I think from my end, maybe just a quick note, I think one helpful thing would be, because we can also have a conversation about that, of course, during lunch later, but I think that one helpful thing that we probably need to think about is really being very cautious and very strategic about what are we feeding AI. Because I can imagine the world in which we creating AI systems that are very much powered by good ethical frameworks, by licensed work, which is credited, right? Where we actually understand exactly why does it look like this and what are the kind of connections that are being made in there. Like if you have a proper ethical framework that actually is designed from the start to make world better rather than just efficient, right? Because I think that there is a big difference, right? We all focus very much on productivity, I think at this point, and getting faster, getting better, getting great results, wasting less time and so on. But that's only one part of the story. I think like this is the other part that we actually need to bring in there. And maybe we'll get incredible results. I mean, maybe I'm just being too naive and hopeful here, but that's my thought. I mean, I stole your answer.
No, that's a perfect answer. No, I just was going to say that money is flowing into AI. That's a fact for several reasons. Pablo mentioned that NFTs are not a thing anymore. Yeah, that's actually a reality. My only take would be, I hope those companies that are getting the funds put it into open source and design. I think these are the two things that we need now, like making sure this remains open source and making sure we make, we make valuable experiences for people. Like it could be companies, it could be individuals, it could be communities. But yeah, I agree with you. Like most of the things that are out there today are not really adding value or that much value. So yeah, let's see.
Excellent. Well, we're running out of time. We could probably speak for like another 62 hours on the topic. But please give a warm round of applause to Ivan, Eriol, and Pablo for joining us. Excellent. I think we're going to continue conversations, but I think that Pablo, maybe you want to come on stage and say a few words before we break out into lunch? Hey, for Pablo, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes. Go and join the. We're gonna wrap up now. Please,
sure.
I'd love to have you relax. Seated there. Let's get this out of the way. We're gonna do the closure. This is the time, where the event is really, really coming to an end. So, thank you so much, Vitaly. Okay, this is unopened. Okay, good. So, this was Penpot Fest. We really hope that you enjoyed it, that you learned something, that you met new people, you found exciting projects, you had a great time, you had also great food, enjoyed the venue, the company, and this is the end, unfortunately, but we wanted to make sure that we were building something new, unique, different, acting, as someone was saying, kind of a glue also for different open source communities around open source and design. And I think it resonated, all those values, with you, with the speakers, people online joining. So it was a great experience for us. It was 2 months really of very hard work. I hope it paid off, and I want to really welcome the community team on stage. Great, 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 great. Oh, no. So, Viva Penpot Fest! Viva Penpot Fest! Viva Penpot Fest! Thank you. One last housekeeping rule, if you can, we're gonna have the lunch there, but we will be putting a QR code here. You can scan it and you will get to a feedback form. Feedback is great, please share it. You also have that QR code or some link in your emails, but you can already do that during lunch. Thank you so much.